While researching for my lost media videos, I always come across some really interesting topics that have little to no proof of their existence. This usually causes me to scrap the topic because there isn't much to talk about or show on screen. But today, I've decided to put these pieces of lost media that have piqued my interest over the past couple of years into one video. Now, I present to you lost media with little to no evidence of existence. "12-Ounce Mouse" is an animated series that first ran on Adult Swim from 2005 to 2006. It follows Fitzgerald the mouse. Fitz is an alcoholic who does what he can to pay for booze. As the show goes on, Fitz begins to remember things he had forgotten, such as having a wife and child. This sparks something inside him, and he is now on a quest to find out about his past. Show creator Matt Maialero made very basic character designs and voiced Fitz himself to cut down on the cost of production. Because of this, the show looked very different than other Adult Swim shows. Viewers of the late night Cartoon Network block either loved it or couldn't stand it. There wasn't much in between. After a online-only episode was released in May of 2007, 12-Ounce Mouse fell into obscurity and seemed to be a distant memory for Adult Swim fans. Seemingly out of nowhere in 2018, a 12-Ounce Mouse double-length special titled Invictus aired on Adult Swim. This resurrected interest in the show, and it was greenlit for a third season. An 11-episode season was produced and aired on July 20th in 2020. A new episode aired every day following the premiere. So the season ended 11 days later. Months went by and it was announced that 12-Ounce Mouse would not get a fourth season. I have fond memories of watching 12-Ounce Mouse. I thought it was really entertaining. You couldn't take it too serious. The vibe of the show was funny and cool. Seasons 1 through 3 consists of 31 episodes, 2 specials, and a webisode. However, there is one episode that no fan has ever seen. The original pilot episode. A test pilot for 12-Ounce Mouse was created in 2004. John Bruston was an editor for the show, and he mentioned this pilot in a 2021 interview. He stated that only a few staff members even know about it. In 2004, Heath Crawford was the vice president of Adult Swim. He voiced the character Golden Joe in this pilot. Golden Joe was different in more ways than one, as he was originally planned to be the boss of Fitz. Golden Joe would be changed in production, and in the show, we see him as a close friend of Fitz. In this interview, John Bruston reveals that the pilot was not saved. The files are gone, and the original 12-Ounce Mouse pilot is lost forever. No footage or even screenshots can be seen of this episode. If you've ever played the Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis, then you've probably heard of a game called Echo the Dolphin. You swim around the ocean on a quest to save the planet. These games are known for being very difficult. We could dive into the history of Echo a bit more, but in this video, I'm going to talk about a different dolphin named Dewey. The Adventures of Dewey the Dolphin is a video game that started development in 1990. Set to be published by Illustrious Ocean Software, it was originally an arcade game. After discussions, developers saw this as a bad idea, and it was agreed that the game would do better on the Sega Genesis. The very first announcement of Dewey the Dolphin was in issue 13 of Electronic Gaming Monthly. The description reads, "Swim through the depths of the ocean, watching out for all of the hungry fish who are looking for a tasty morsel for dinner." meet up with Neptune, the ocean god. More changes were made in development, and the final decision was that The Adventures of Dewey the Dolphin would be released on the Nintendo Entertainment System. For unknown reasons, the game was cancelled. This may be because the Super Nintendo was released in November of 1990, and the development team may have thought it wouldn't do well because it wasn't on the new console. Although it is rumored that the reason for cancellation is because it was too similar to Echo the Dolphin, even though Echo wasn't released until 1992. The only evidence we can see of Dewey the Dolphin, besides the gaming magazine announcement, is the title card for the game, and one screenshot showing Dewey swimming up to King Neptune. This screenshot is important because it shows us that a prototype was created. I'm glad we can view this so we can see what Dewey looked like in the game, although I must say, it's very strange that King Neptune is naked. Curious George is a very popular children's book series. It centers around a monkey named George who was brought from Africa by the man in the yellow hat. George goes on fun-filled adventures and often gets himself into trouble. Usually, the man in the yellow hat saves George in the nick of time. Kids really loved Curious George. The monkey became so well liked that more Curious George material was in demand. TV films based on the character were made in the late 70s and early 80s, and first aired in the US on Nickelodeon in 1984. Later on, they were played on Disney's Lunchbox program. Around 2004, a new Curious George show began development for the PBS Kids preschool block. The series premiered on PBS Kids on September 4th, 2006. This show was a huge success and ran for 9 seasons before it finally came to an end on April 1st of 2015. The TV world couldn't go too long without Curious George on the screen, and the show was brought back for its 10th season in 2018. The show currently has 15 seasons and is still running strong to this day. One thing that many fans are unaware of is that a test pilot was made for the show in 2004. The episode was shown to preschoolers to gauge how kids would like the show. Very little was known about this mysterious pilot. An early version of the show's logo and some art showing an early version of the episode titled Zeros to Donuts was posted on the Curious George website. Fans of the series have speculated that this is from the lost pilot. I remember in elementary school during library class, my teacher Miss Robinette would play kids shows on the VHS. Curious George was always fun to watch on those days, so I hope this pilot episode gets found. Smokey Bear is an advertising mascot who is used for wildfire prevention. The first campaign to feature this iconic character was made in 1944. Since then, Smokey the Bear has become known worldwide. If you ever watch TV, then chances are you've seen a commercial featuring Smokey the Bear. Something about Smokey that is fairly unknown to the public is that in the 80s, an Atari 2600 game was planned around the wildfire prevention mascot, set to be developed by Data Age. This would have been an educational game made for kids. In this game, you would help Smokey the Bear prevent or put out forest fires. This game was finished and ready for release. However, a previous licensed game from Data Age titled Journey Escape did not sell too well and was a financial flop. Because of this, it's possible that Data Age were in debt and couldn't afford licensing fees for the game. Although, Smokey the Bear was planned for a 1983 release, which was the year of the video game crash. So this undoubtedly had an effect on the game's release as well. The only evidence of this game is a coming soon sheet that was put together by Data Age, featuring Smokey the Bear. If you watched Nickelodeon in the 90s, then chances are you've seen more than one episode of Rugrats. Something that is fairly unknown to fans of the show is that there was a live performance version of the Rugrats when the show was at the height of its popularity. Rugrats: A Live Adventure was a live musical performance that toured around the US from 1998 to 2000. Before the shows began, promos for the cartoon would be shown to get the audience pumped up. While this played, Angelica would tell the audience how much time was left until the show started. The show would open with 3 movers named Larry, Steve, and Astoria, asking the audience if they were at the Ice Palace in Tampa. Next, Tommy's grandpa would come in and tell the movers what to do. The audience would interact with the characters as the musical went on. Grandpa begins to tell a story, but quickly falls to sleep, just like in the show. The movers then quit working and rap about the Rugrats. In between songs, the Rugrats would act out scenes, and it would carry on like an episode of Rugrats. These live performances were very popular, but somehow, no videos of the full performances were available to watch for years. However, the soundtrack from the show is available for purchase. The full list of shows and tour dates can be viewed online. In 2017, Nick posted 2 clips as a Nick Rewind of the musical that lasted 1 minute each. Aside from this, Spanish versions of random tour dates would pop up on the internet from time to time. On June 5th of 2021, YouTube channel Sesame Street Live 2015 posted a video that seemed to be one of the lost performances from 1998. Upon further inspection, this is one of the Spanish musicals with the English audio placed over it. Since Nickelodeon posted the 2 short clips as official Nick Rewinds, this leads me to believe that they have most of the performances locked away at Nick headquarters. Despicable Me 2 was released in 2013. The second film in the Despicable Me series, it received very positive reviews and is revered by Illumination fans. Despicable Me 2 is the most profitable movie in the history of Universal Pictures. One thing that is unknown to many fans of the series is that Al Pacino was originally cast to voice the main villain in the film, Eduardo El Macho Perez. Al Pacino recorded the entire dialogue for the character, and the final edits were being done. Pacino's voice credits were shown in a 2012 trailer for Despicable Me 2. Some trailers were even titled using his name, alongside Steve Carell. Out of nowhere, on May 3rd, 2013, producers of the film announced that Al Pacino left production of Despicable Me 2, and would no longer be part of the movie. The reason for Pacino's departure was creative differences on the character he was voicing. The role was given to Benjamin Bratt, and Pacino's involvement with Despicable Me 2 was soon forgotten about. No audio of Al Pacino as El Macho has ever been released to the public. It's a little strange to me that no audio of the main villain was used in trailers and previews. Maybe things were not going so well with Pacino from the start, and producers felt a major disagreement brewing. The full movie with Al Pacino voicing El Macho is most likely locked away in a vault at Universal to never be seen again. TNA Impact was founded in 2002 by Jeff Jarrett and his father. For the first 2 years, the company was associated with the NWA and went by NWA Total Nonstop Action. The name of the company was changed to Total Nonstop Action Wrestling, or TNA, in 2004. At this time, TNA started to gain traction and be looked at as a low-level competitor to WWE. Wrestlers like Shark Boy, AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, Samoa Joe, and Abyss held up the promotion and built the foundation for TNA to become a big company. Stars like Kurt Angle, Scott Steiner, and Jeff Hardy helped the company rise in popularity. In November of 2005, TNA began negotiations with different companies to create a video game. TNA were in talks with Rockstar Games and Electronic Arts before making an agreement with Midway Games. Samoa Joe and AJ Styles are gamers, so they set in on meetings with Midway to come up with ideas. After 2 years of development, TNA Impact was released for all 7th generation consoles in September of 2008. This game was fun and definitely had a unique feel to it. It received average reviews on sites like IGN and Metacritic. Gamers were happy with the controls and grapples, but not too satisfied with the absence of championship belts. Also, the movesets were very repetitive. One thing that deterred many gamers from this game is that the AI was never consistent. You would wrestle someone and win the match. Then next time you wrestle the same person, they would demolish you. GameSpot described the game pretty well when reviewing the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 versions, saying it's no heavyweight champion, but this brawler still packs a satisfying punch. Despite its shortcomings, TNA Impact was successful. By February of 2009, the game had sold 1.5 million copies. 2 different mobile ports of the game were made as well. TNA acknowledged the game's success and began developing a sequel title. After development began, a major problem arose. Midway was in debt and things were looking very bad for the company. Later that year, Time Warner purchased Midway Games and most of its assets. Interestingly enough, the license to make a TNA game was not included in this purchase. In September of 2009, President of TNA Dixie Carter announced that the company was looking for a new partner to make their game. 2 months later, South Peak Games obtained the Midway TNA license. However, they didn't continue development of the sequel. Instead, they released a game titled TNA Impact Cross the Line on PSP and Nintendo DS. This is basically a handheld port of the first game, with an updated roster. During an interview with ESPN, Samoa Joe spoke about the development of TNA Impact No. 2. Based on this, we do know a build of the game does exist. Nothing from this game was ever released to the public, and probably never will be. In 1989, Nickelodeon launched Nicktoons, their original animated programming. Nick commissioned 8 pilots, and we're going to choose the 4 best concepts to become a new show on Nicktoons. One of these pilots was titled Big Beast Quintet. It was based on these 5 characters who were shown in a 10-second Nickelodeon station ID. The creators thought this would help the show succeed, because kids had already seen the characters before. In this pilot, the characters were a tad more detailed. They live in the city of Animatropolis. My guess is that the big orange beast here is Big Beast Quintet. The characters live in Animatropolis and work as news reporters for Channel Zero. The main antagonist of the show is their boss, Nero Zero. He has a nice mean switch on his head, controlled by his assistant, Bombat. The 5 characters are sent to Ice Cube Island to do a story on the abominably animated man. They are unsuccessful and cannot find the man, so they use a stage set to do a fake broadcast. Big Beast doesn't feel right about this, so he goes out on his own to search. The boss, Nero Zero, shows up to find only 4 of the crew on set. This upsets him until Big Beast shows up with the abominably animated man. This flips the switch, making Nero Zero happy again. It's said that the pilot had a silly feel to it, and it wasn't received very well. The idea of a mean and angry boss wouldn't really work for a kid's show, and Big B's quintet was rejected. All hope wasn't lost, as Nickelodeon had a meeting with Colossal Pictures, the creator of the pilot, and changed the concept of the show, now calling it Channel Zero. The pilot was altered and pitched again. Unfortunately, it still wasn't good enough to become a Nicktoon. In the end of the Nickelodeon pilot competition, the 3 winners were Rugrats, Doug, and Ren and Stimpy. So Big Beast Quintet had some stiff competition, to say the least. No footage of the pilot episodes can be viewed today. All we can see is the original station ID, showing the characters from the show, leaving us to form the pilot in our own heads as we read the description while watching this 10-second clip over and over. 64 Zoo Lane is a kids animated series that follows a 7-year-old girl named Lucy. She lives next door to a zoo, and every night the animals tell her a story. The main plot in each episode usually revolves around friendship and caring for others. The show first premiered in France and Germany in 1999. 64 Zoo Lane ran for 2 seasons, producing 52 episodes. The show was brought to the US years later. It aired on Noggin and ABC. It seemed like the show was finished after 2 seasons, but in 2010, it was brought back by popular demand, and 2 more seasons were made. 64 Zoo Lane now has an impressive 104 episodes, but there is one episode that fell into obscurity. Creator of the series, Am Vrombot, began developing a pilot episode for the show. 1 year later, a pitch pilot was finished and shown at the Cartoon Forum in the Azores. The pilot tested very well and had a positive reception from the audience. Even though everyone loved the pilot, making a show was very expensive. It took 5 years to get the funds to produce the show. The show finally got produced, and from there, 64 Zoo Lane hit the ground running. Since the show has seen great success, the pilot episode is barely remembered and is merely a footnote when the show is mentioned. All we can see of the 64 Zoo Lane pilot episode today is the title card for the episode, and an article where one of the show's creators talks about trying to get the cartoon produced. Baby Blues is a comic strip that was created by Rick Kirkman and Jerry Scott in 1990. It centers around Daryl and Wanda McPherson as they raise their newborn baby, Zoe. It shows the everyday struggles of being a parent, and later on in the series, Zoe gets a brother and sister, Hammy and Ren. This comic strip is really cool as the kids grow up through the series. Baby Blues is very successful and is still running to this day. In the 90s, Warner Brothers began talking to the creators of the comic strip about making an animated series. It's said that production started in 1995 and the 13-episode season took 5 years to complete. A Baby Blues Christmas special was set to premiere in 1998, but wasn't finished on time. In 1999, Warner Brothers attempted to rename the show Bluesville. The creators were not aware of this and made sure Baby Blues was the final name. Baby Blues, the animated series, premiered on the WB in 2000. 8 episodes were aired and the show brought in pretty low ratings. The cartoon would be more adult-oriented than the comics. Rick Kirkman and Jerry Scott didn't have much say on the content of the show. However, one of the creators did say he liked some of the episodes. The WB made a swift decision to cancel the show, not even giving it a fair chance. Luckily, Adult Swim saved this show, and the final 5 episodes of Season 1 aired on the late night programming block in 2002. It was a really good fit for Adult Swim, just like Mission Hill and The Oblongs, which both came from WB as well. Remember that Christmas special I just mentioned that was supposed to be the unofficial pilot in 1998? It didn't air until February of 2002. Yeah, that's how bad the Warner Brothers messed up this show. The strange thing about this is that Warner Brothers originally had big plans for Baby Blues. In September of 2000, it was announced that Baby Blues would get a second season. 13 full episodes were produced for Season 2. This was confirmed by creator Rick Kirkman. He stated that the episodes were ready to be released, and they just needed a few final edits. Kirkman added that the entire season was written off as an accounting practice by WB, and for this reason, the episodes will probably never see the light of day. That is, lost media with little to no evidence of existence. If anyone who worked on these shows and games happens to see this video, comment on this video and give us an update on these pieces of lost media. I'm very happy to say that Stay Up Late Productions has been on YouTube for 3 years now. I appreciate each and every one of you for watching my videos over these years. And I hope you enjoyed this one as well. If you did, then you may want to check out my video about Mission Hill Lost Media. In the video, I interviewed Bill Oakley, co-creator of Mission Hill and former executive producer of The Simpsons. It's definitely one of my favorite projects I've done so far. Have a great day, and as always, until next time, Stay Up Late Productions.